Hey y'all, and welcome back to my channel. On this page, I talk about technology and money. If you're new here, please consider liking and sharing the video and subscribing to the channel. Liking and sharing the video does two things. Number one, it tells the algorithm that you find this content interesting, engaging, puts it out into the algorithm and lets other people know that. So you're adding value. And number two, it encourages me to continue creating content that you all find helpful. I hope wherever you are, you had a good day, you're having a good week so far, and at minimum, if not that, that you've at least had a moment to take some time and do something nice for yourself. So today I wanted to talk about and discuss a new article that came out today. A new article, and also some new research that came out that use data to prove that if more women invested in female-led companies, it could help narrow the gender wealth gap and also strengthen the economy. Right. So we know what's going on right now with the economy, at least in the United States, but also globally, and also locally. We know that we are entering in a season of one of the largest wealth transfers that the world has ever seen, in the trillions of dollars, with passing from one generation to the next. I've heard and listened to multiple content creators, both here on YouTube, also on podcasts, talk about how women can empower themselves to not only secure their own financial futures, but also for their families. Some of the channels that I follow here on YouTube have been definitely talking about that recently, and I'm very interested in it, right? So on this channel, we talk about money is one of the topics that I talk about. So I'm very interested in ways to build wealth for myself, my family, community, etc. So this new article, and as always, this new article and research. As always, I'll be sure to leave links to all the articles that I share as resources. I'll be sure to leave them in the description box. So let me make sure my screen is sharing here. Okay, yes, it is. Okay, so this new article, which was in posted Biz Women this morning. Biz Women is one of the business journals that I read uh, several times a week, just to know what's going on in the business world, in the tech world, entrepreneurship, etc. So this article posted this morning in Biz Women said, unsure of what to invest in, how about women-led companies? And then again, referring back to the title, if more women invested in these companies, if more women invested in female-led companies, this could help narrow the gender wealth gap and strengthen the economy. So the article goes on to say, so this article is based on new research that came out of the How Women and Men Invest in Startups research, and we'll get into the research here momentarily, and I'll be sure to keep this a short live, and then leave a link again so you can go read through it yourself. Finds that women offer immense opportunities for wealth management firms, are more sophisticated investors than their male counterparts, and that they tend to invest in startups that make an impact. So this research was commissioned to better understand like what motivates women to invest in startups, invest in businesses and women-led businesses. And they found some interesting the data, the results of their research. And again, I'll be sure to share some of the metrics and how the measurements were done for this research. As an informatics nurse, anytime I read a research study or look at data, a graph, a visualization. If you know anything about data analytics, you can use data analytics and data visualization. You can use that same data to tell a different story. That's why I'm always interested in the metrics and the measurements and how conclusions were reached. But some of the high level findings of this report and this research said, quote, we verified our hunch that venture investing represents an enormous opportunity for women to build wealth, fund innovation, and to change the business dynamics that keep women from bringing their businesses to fruition. The answer is clear. We need more women to invest in more women-led companies. So some of the reports included some of the findings included women are more likely to rely on their financial advisor's input than men, 45% versus 31%. Women are much more likely than men to mitigate investment risk by investing in startups to diversify their portfolios. I have read through the research and it talks about how women manage risk when it comes to not just investment in startups, but investing in general. And some of the things that give women an advantage when it comes to investment. Then another key takeaway was women are more likely than men to invest in startups that align with their values to make the world a better place and to close the gender gap. So at the same time, female venture fund managers and startup founders have a harder time than their male counterparts raising capital from institutional investors, and as a result, rely more on high net worth individuals to scale their funds and businesses. When female founders cannot raise capital for their startups or their individual investors, they also cannot create disruptive technologies, products, and business models. And then it talks about leveraging the power of women's wealth to create a more robust, inclusive economy, and how this is a critical step in clearing any obstacles to women-led companies and ventures. And it talks about other barriers that we've heard about, at least I have heard about before. So I'm not going to read any more through the article. Now I'm going to pivot and share. Let me do a quick time check. Okay, cool. So we're 7 minutes in. I didn't want to make this too long. Now I want to pivot. And again, I'll leave a link to this investment study and this research in the description box. So how women and men invest in startups, and it gives a roadmap to unlocking women's wealth as a source of the startup funding. You can download the report. And let me go over to the report here. So I'm going to jump straight to the metrics. Again, anytime I read research or read through data, look at graphs, data visualizations, the first thing I'm always interested in is the measurements, because again, it's really easy with data you can use data, the same data set in different ways to tell a different story depending on the story that you want to tell. So let's just very quickly look at the metrics. So this survey was developed by researchers at Core Women and Venture Near, based on a literature review of the drivers of investment in startups, hesitancies, and the factors that overcome resistance. So then I was interested in, what is their sample size? So they had 624 responses. The researchers were transparent in saying that they did incentivize the people who participated. They did a $5 donation to one of four nonprofits for each person's responses. And then they do talk about bias in the methodology. That's something I'm always interested in. So they do disclose like how self-selection bias may have occurred because people decided if they wanted to participate. They also talked a little bit about attrition and systematic differences between people who leave the study before completing it. And they talk about how the researchers talk about how they weighed the respondents answers, how they weighed it statistically. And so as a result of the things that I mentioned and the small sample size, because it was only 624 responses, which, that's not a large sample size. So they acknowledge that. So they used a higher level of statistical significance for responses. So they say they use 10 points instead of 5. And so they talk a little bit more about their methodology. Okay, so now that we've gotten very high level the methodology out of the way, let me see. Let me go back to the top and some of the key things I wanted to mention here. Let me go. Here we go. This is what jumped out to me. This was in the introduction, and they very clearly show the differences. They describe based on the respondents the differences in how women invest and how men invest. Like, for example, women have a tendency to invest in funds. They invest for the long term. They invest to grow and preserve capital, more so social responsibility, which that Biz Women article talked about, more risk astute in comparison to men who have a tendency more so to invest in individual stocks. They trade more frequently. I believe that's possibly related to like day trading. Their goals are to maximize growth. Overconfident, and I found that interesting. And they starred the overconfident. You can see this here. I have it highlighted, and that's based on an article in the Quarterly Journal of Economics. Some research there that men investors tend to be more overconfident and they tend to rely on their instinct. So I'm going to, since this report, the research study is quite lengthy, I'm going to jump to the conclusion and just call out some things that I noticed. This is very interesting. Let's see, it was towards the end that I wanted to make sure I highlight here in this discussion. Just bear with me. All right. Here we go. All right. So they say the women's investment style of thinking long term, spreading risk by buying diversified funds and trading less frequently than men can lead to good returns. Talking about women's risk tolerance, investment objectives, and passion, and allocating a small portion of women's portfolios to invest in startups can be attractive, and how that is beneficial for small, diverse companies as well. There was another item here I wanted to call out. Did I skip over it? Okay, I may have. Just bear with me, y'all. I will get better at highlighting these studies. I wanted to call out. Okay, I cannot. There was one other interesting item that I wanted to call out about the investment in differences in men and women, and how that leads to can lead to wealth for women, and how it could help narrow that gap in wealth. But the last thing I wanted to call out, because I can't find the one thing I was like, oh yeah, I wanted to be sure to mention. But I did look, which I found interesting. I did look here at the end to see all of the outreach partners, that companies that participated in this research study, and help the researchers get to their conclusions. And one thing I noticed, they did mention Catherine Finney, which I've been following her work for a while. If you're not aware of Catherine Finney, she did she completed the Project Diane research study of Black women founders in tech, and how they get funding for their companies. And it was one of the largest. It was the largest research that was ever done, looking at women, Black women led tech companies, and how they get their funding, and just the general demographics. So that was it, y'all. I did want to just bring this new research to you all here. They called out Catherine Finney here that I was just mentioning, but bring this new study to you all's attention, and add to that conversation that I noticed a lot of content creators here on YouTube, but also on podcasts, challenging us, women, Black women, all women, to think about ways we can grow our wealth, right? For not only ourselves and secure our futures, but also for our families and for our communities, and how we are stepping into that season with what's going on with everything in the economy, and how we're facing the largest wealth transfer in history between generations. So, yeah, y'all, that's it. I'll be sure to leave a link to this in the description. I'll also leave my contact information as well. And as always, I'll see you in the next video.